Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because the Queen told me to and I have to do absolutely everything she says. Today we're talking about Melinda Salisbury's Sineater's Daughter Trilogy. I feel like it's been a while since we've talked about like a big chunky trilogy together. I'm excited for it. Quick disclaimers before we start. I'm pretty sure all of these books I bought myself or was gifted by a friend or family member. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I am going to be talking about the trilogy as a whole, but I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. If you do want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, click away now. And I will link the story graph for the series below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. The Sineater's Daughter originally came out in 2015 and was followed by the sequels, The Sleeping Prince and The Scarecrow Queen. They all look very similar. It's a green, blue, orange kind of time. We're going to pop these two up here. They are a YA fantasy trilogy that's very of its time, I would say, but we'll come on to that in just a moment. Melinda Salisbury, who we will talk about next week, but I filmed that video first, so I think I've got it a little bit mixed up. It might end up being in another order. Has also written The Song of Sorrow duology, Hold Back the Tide, The Wayback Almanac, written a bunch of stuff. Melinda Salisbury. Met her a few times, seems like a good egg. I don't know if the main character's name is pronounced Twyla or Twilla. Twylla. I would make that Twilla. To me. I'm going to say Twilla. You can argue with me if you want to. Twilla is blessed. The gods have chosen her to marry a prince and rule the kingdom. But the favour of the gods has its price. A deadly poison infuses her skin. Those who anger the queen must die under Twilla's fatal touch. Only Leaf, an outspoken new guard, can see past Twilla's chilling role to the girl she truly is. Yet, in a court as dangerous as the queen's, some truths should not be told. That's book one. Book one is that. Let's shuffle you guys back a little bit so you're all in frame. All my ladies trapped in bottles. Is it a metaphor? Yes, it is. I read these a very, very long time ago, probably back in, maybe not 2015, because I wouldn't have been reading at that point as much. Probably 2016 I read Sineater's Daughter and then read the other two with quite big gaps in between because I was not great at reading trilogies back to back. However, 2023 Judith wanted to give you a complete and coherent review, so I spent a week rereading these alongside some other bits. I read them back to back to back and I had a really good time doing it. I will say, I wasn't expecting to. I thought it was going to be the case that I would read book one and go, great, don't need to make a review video for this because they're going out the door. But I've actually hung on to them. I think I'm probably going to hang on to them at least until my next big unhaul, which will be at the end of this year. So that's my personal history with it. I read them, I liked them, I completely forgot everything that happened in them and I didn't really connect up the dots between the books because what happens is book one we follow Twilla, book two we follow a different character and book three is the two characters combined. It's a dual POV kind of book. I don't know why I can't say that today. If you don't read them back to back, if you completely forget who characters are and their relationships to one another between the books, it is very confusing. My recommendation for this series, read them all together if you're going to read them at all, else you will get very confused, unless you are a majestic kind of person that I aspire to be, where you just remember the things that happen in books. My feelings on this series, I think that if you lean in to the 2015 YA of it all, you will have a good time. I think they are love triangle-y, repressed, kind of silly books. They are dealing with very emotional things. By the end of the third book, things are getting quite dark. In fact, by the end of the first book, things are getting quite dark. They're not, a silly fun time. But broadly speaking, it's let yourself be in a YA world for a while. Let YA fantasy logic take over, where yes, you can be dealing with the fate of the universe, but you can also think about which boy you want to date at exactly the same time. And you can have it all. If that is all, I feel like there was a particular period of time, and maybe it was around 2015, I'd have to map out the books, but there were so many YA books that were to do with characters who could not be touched. They were very specific, like I remember at least one that was Midas inspired, where the character would turn stuff to gold. There was definitely another one where someone had poison skin. This had poison skin in it. There was just a lot of times where we were really dealing with the idea of young ladies who could not be touched and then learning that perhaps they could be and maybe it was all a lie the whole time, that kind of thing. I don't know what that says about that particular period of time and trends and things. Maybe we could investigate it together, but that's not what this video is about. I think if you lean into those ideas, those somewhat cliched, somewhat silly ideas and concepts, you will have a better time with the story than if you go in with a slightly cynical mindset. And that's going to depend on your relationship to YA and how much you enjoy that kind of storytelling. That's what that is. However, stripping all that away, going back to like the essence of this world, there are some really cool world building ideas in this story. I think it's one of the things I really like about this and also the Song of Sorrow duology is those details in the world. And these aren't long books. This isn't like a Samantha Shannon, I've thought out the entire cosmology and, what kind of soil is in which area of the world. This is relatively small, but those details really help flesh out the world and there's just some cool ideas. So sin eating. Why is it called the Sineater's Daughter? She is the daughter of a Sineater, which in this world, when you die, part of the funerary ritual is they'll pile all these foods out on your coffin, and the Sineater will come and eat them all and take the sins upon themselves, so that you can basically go off to the afterlife lighter. And each food corresponds to a different sin, and so there's a lot of things in the book where our main character will eat a food and then recognize which sin it's representative of, and it kind of plays into the book. That's most prevalent in book 1. It does do that YA trilogy thing of, I had a cool idea in book 1 and by book 3 it wasn't super relevant anymore, but I definitely found it a really cool world building element, and it comes up often enough that I still think it's enjoyable. And you know me, I love the idea of death practices and funerary stuff in fantasy, so it definitely fit the bill for me. There's also a fair amount of politicking and kind of fantasy monarchy politics stuff going on, some of which was very icky. You can see it in my face. There was definitely a live stream where I was reading this book and I kind of went, but it's still interesting stuff. It's just not, you know, pleasant to read, but it is interesting family ideas and politics, and I like the mystery kind of element to the story as well. There's a lot of romance in here. The romance isn't my favourite thing, just isn't. I don't love that kind of nobody can touch me, oh you can touch me, great, fantastic kind of romance. I think if only book 1 existed, it would bother me more, but because Twila has quite a lot of growth through to book 3, I think it doesn't bother me as much. And I think Melinda Salisbury is very good at trying to develop those very kind of classic YA love triangle-y kind of relationships into something that is a bit more complicated and a bit more meaningful. I don't know that it's always successful, particularly in this early trilogy, but there's definitely an attempt made to go, this isn't we fall in love, happily ever after, let's move on kind of story, and characters are complicated and people are complicated, and this world that we are in is complicated and we need to just keep going. It's hard to say. I would say if you don't love YA, you won't love these. I think that still probably stands. If you're not a YA reader, you won't enjoy these. I liked them partly for the nostalgia feeling, and partly I think because I was reading them so condensed and it had been a while since I really dug into a trilogy, that impacted my enjoyment of it. I think not everyone is going to love these. I know Asha read them and wasn't such a huge fan, completely valid. I think for me what really clicked is being in the right headspace for the book, being able to lean in and being able to say, I'm just going to enjoy these, I'm just going to keep reading until I'm done. It's that kind of trilogy. I think if I'd stopped at any point and really rationalised things, I might have had less fun. Other things you might want to read if you've already read these, or if you're planning on reading these. I'm trying to think. I always look at Little Thieves. Little Thieves just has a lot of the same vibes for me, but let me see. I don't have any YA on these shelves anymore, so I can't really compare anything. I don't have the answers for you. I don't. I will try and find what that Midas Touch book was, because I don't remember hating that. I think it's called Touch of Gold. I'll put the cover up of that, in case you're interested in reading more books where people can't be touched for some reason. If you have any other examples of those, please do plug them down in the comments, because I really enjoy them. I find them very funny. I shouldn't. It's a very deeply, difficult thing for the main character, but just as a concept, it always works out the same way, and it's always a handsome guard who can suddenly touch you, and you're like, oh, my whole life has changed. I appreciate it. Should you read these? My feeling is probably, maybe. It depends on your feelings towards 2015 YA and all of that stuff. I know a lot of my reviews recently have been, it's really going to depend, but in this case, it genuinely very much is. I would say that for most people, they will have an alright time with this. Some people will love it, and for some people, it will be terrible. But I think the majority of us are going to sit around about the 3.5 kind of star mark. I had a good time rereading this trilogy. I think I would probably read it again. I don't think I'm going to anytime in the near future, just because there's so many books to read and I am behind on everything, and just the idea of rereading a trilogy for funsies doesn't really sit in my schedule at the moment. However, I might do one day. I'll hang on to it until that time. It's going to go down on the downstairs shelves. Have you read these? Do you have plans to? Do you have a favourite Melinda Salisbury book? What are your thoughts on 2015 YA and the concept of touch? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord, where we have chill chats about books. I'd like to say a huge shout out and a thank you to all of the ghosts who helped me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content and live streams. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. I forgot what I'm meant to talk about next. I've completely lost my structure.